This is the training program that Arnold used leading up to his 7 Mr. Olympia titles from 1970 to 1980. It is one that many have undoubtedly tried, only to be humbled by the immense workload. Arnold's double split 6-day per week workout had him working out twice a day, every day of the week except for one, using many exercises, high effort, and probably too many sets. Now we can guess what he was getting at. In an era where exercise science wasn't thoroughly developed, trial and error was the tool that made champions. Experimentation allowed each individual to find things that their body responded to, and one of the earliest discoveries many bodybuilders found was the dose-dependent relationship of certain training variables with results. For instance, if you were after a chest that didn't look like a man's chest, but a pigeon's or a barrel, you might start doing bench presses 5 sets of 10 once a week in some lackadaisical fashion. After some time though, you might find that applying more effort to the same scheme would cause a rapid growth spurt and increase muscle in the pectorals. So you decide that more effort equals more gains. If you perform the same protocol for many months, you might find that the gains slowed down and you end up hitting a plateau. Having no more effort to give, you feel stuck and resolve to change something else. So now it's 8 sets of bench instead of 5, and once again you begin to grow. So you just learned that more working sets, or more volume, equals more gains. Having trained the chest for several months in this high volume, high effort fashion, gains once again slow down. This time you add an extra day, going to 2 times per week instead of 1. Again, you begin to make progress. So more frequency must mean more gains. Now you're on the warpath, putting every tool you have to work and chasing chesticle girthiness you never thought possible. Until, what else can I change, you ask yourself? Looking at the same movement you've been doing for the last 2 years, you say, aha, I need to shock the muscle with a new movement. Now bench press is followed up with dumbbells and flies, and after a few weeks, your chest meat is so heavy that you're having trouble breathing. So of course, more variation must equal more gains. So now you're a year into this experiment, much bigger than before, but tired of these frequent speed bumps, and in trying to come up with the master rules for lifting, you decide that just generally, more is better. More variation, more frequency, more effort. So while this is not even close to being a complete heuristic of how training works, it is a somewhat logical conclusion of a motivated lifter putting their body together from scratch. And this is exactly what Arnold's training was. Grueling workouts that involved vomit-inducing effort across many working sets with many different exercises multiple times per week. The only way he could physically fit all of this work into a week was to train twice a day, 6 days per week. This was obviously the program of a man possessed to win. Now there's something moving about the most motivated people doing whatever it takes to get their goal, even if the application was suboptimal. While the early strongmen and bronze bodybuilders were certainly goal-oriented and engaged seriously with the discipline, the urgency to excel isn't quite as high in a sport with fewer participants. As participants and talent pushes the bar even higher, so too does the panic to keep up, and many radical transformations have been brought on by sheer desperation created by steeper competition. The Bulgarian system is a commonly cited example, as a small nation was able to produce Olympic champions against world superpowers by throwing out the complex periodized systems of the day that were meant to expertly balance stress and recovery, and just doing all the stress. The system had lifters max out several lifts 3 times per day, 6 days per week, and put a high premium on new PRs and absolute weight moved over technique. I wonder how any of this fits into Prilipin's chart. Much of the work was actually failed lifts, getting into dozens or hundreds of missed attempts per week. The brutal system had no grace or real intelligence behind it, other than knowing that the ones who didn't break under the stress of the system would thrive and become champions. The result was Bulgaria as a nation, with very few people, having several gold medals against lifters from some of the biggest state-sponsored lifting programs in the world.
You're in Alcatraz. You're locked in a cell that's so short you can't even stand up on a bed you don't even fit on, right? It's all dark. All your family and loved ones are in adjacent cells, and they're never allowed out of their cells. You have 30 days to squat a certain amount of weight, to put 100 pounds on your squat. Do you think you're going to train twice a week? And as soon as you ask people that question, how often would you train under these circumstances? Well, fuck, I would train every day. Well, why? Well, because I need to. Right.
Guys, if I can help fund this channel and help you solve a problem, I call that a win-win. So please allow me one moment to preach the good word of Boostcamp. I tend to get a little complex when I'm writing workout plans. Tracking progress for these programs is hugely important, but options were never great. I would write these long, complex progressions by hand into a notebook, or I would carry a binder filled with spreadsheets I printed off of LiftVault. That's why I'm here to introduce you to Boostcamp. Boostcamp is the easy way to track training progress directly from your phone. Their library of programs features countless dozens of powerlifting and hypertrophy-specific programs from your favorite creators, including Jeffrey Verity Schofield, Johnny Candido, Eric Helms, Greg Knuckles, Alberto Nunez, and of course, yours truly. Boostcamp also has exclusive programs that you just won't find anywhere else. Select the one best suited to your needs and watch the sets, reps, weights, and exercises populate automatically. Don't guess at that one weight you lifted that one time for how many reps again? Have your log of training with you at all times for easy reference in the convenience of your phone. Not only does Boostcamp have a stellar product, but their support is the only reason this channel exists. So thank you, the viewer, and thank you to Boostcamp. Check it out today. The link is in the description. Now, as inspiring as it might seem to follow the lead of people that just put their head down and went through the brick wall in front of them, optimal training principles are not set according to the breaking points of the most gifted and pharmaceutically enhanced specimens. If 3 people out of a population of 10,000 are able to tolerate and grow from something, there still has to be a plan for the other 9,997 that would fall apart. So we need to find the principles that are the rules, not the exception. So to find the list of rules that work best, we need to calibrate the system to ourselves. And to do that, we need to know which dials to turn. So here's a list of those important training variables that make up those dials that we can turn. We can't dig in more to the evolution of bodybuilding training until we understand the parameters, the dials you turn that yield a different result. Firstly, we have the equipment. Anything that loads the muscle has the potential to increase size and strength. That includes free weight barbells and dumbbells that have been used across every era of bodybuilding, more modern machines and cables that allow more precise stress with greater stability, and even the bodyweight exercises of Victorian era acrobats and modern day calisthenic athletes. Each type of equipment has its own application and limitation. For instance, you can't scale bodyweight exercises by 2.5 pound increments like you can on a barbell. You can't isolate small muscles away from others on a barbell like you can on a machine. And even though the advancement of equipment allowed for more training options, preferences still vary across every high performer of the sport today. For those who prioritized use of one particular piece of equipment to those who used a blend of them. After that, we have exercises. Each type of equipment has its own list, all of which can be arranged in numerous different ways. Some legendary physiques throughout history came from simple programs using only heavy weights on a barbell, where many modern mass monsters see the lack of surgical precision of a barbell as a pitfall and rely on many small isolation movements with machines that allow them to be more precise in their training. Then we get to how you actually do exercises. This is where things get complicated. The number of ways to do an exercise can include any of the following variables. Focus on the pump or increasing blood flow. Focus on the stretch. Focus on full range of motion. Focus on partials from the bottom, mid-range, or top end. Focus on speed. Focus on slow control. Focus on the eccentric. Focus on weight. Focus on mind muscle or being very strict. Focus on explosive efforts with plenty of cheating. Focus on time under tension, focus on mechanical tension, and the list goes on. Now consider how all of that can be arranged in a workout with short or long rest periods. Many exercises for the same muscle, or very few. Done to failure and beyond, or a few reps shy, using any amount of reps from 1 to 100. And we aren't even to the workout split or training frequency. You have to ask, are you doing this once per week or more? Full body, push-pull legs, one muscle group per day? Is your head spinning? This is where I tell you to take a breath, because the really good news is that all of these have been applied with some success over the years. That means that there are a lot of ways to grow, and your success doesn't require walking a tightrope. So we're gonna figure this out. Now, the last and most important piece is progression. The first lesson that anybody should be exposed to is the one that can yield progress on imperfect programs, but without which there can be no progress. Progression means adding weight, increasing stress, and a fixation on that can absolutely carry your program, but you're not going to do anything if it's not present or you don't understand it, and this cuts to why your body grows in the first place. You experience a stress and your body adapts to render that stress less devastating. After you adapt to it, you can handle it again in stride without it just wrecking you. But that means that more gains can only come from more stress, which has to come in the form of more or different work or more weight. Exactly how you plan those improvements, selecting what increases, by how much, for how long, that's the job of a good program and what any expert trainer or lifter is going to be able to intuit. Progression can refer to a few things, like a new workout that you're not used to, say training a muscle twice per week as opposed to the one that you usually do, or performing 10 total sets instead of 5, or simply getting off the couch to do your first set of push-ups. But it also specifically refers to the methods you use workout to workout to keep stress going up once you've started, like the double progression method that was mentioned before. Many recognize progressive overload as being from Joe Weider's bodybuilding principles, a list of everything that popular culture knew about bodybuilding at the time of its writing in 1950. But its roots track back to the earliest lifters long before Weider ever came on the scene. As we consider these variables and how they contributed to Arnold's insane regimen, we have to move past the Bronze Age and consider Arnold's immediate influences, the first film legends and Muscle Beach icons who made up the Silver Era.